Every morning, billions of people perform the same ritual. They wake up tired, half awake, barely human. Then they reach for a dark, bitter drink that changes everything. Coffee. It powers students before exams, workers before shifts, writers before deadlines, and entire cities before sunrise. But coffee was not always a morning routine. At different points in history, it was called a dangerous drug, banned by religious leaders, feared by kings, and blamed for political rebellion. So, how did a strange bean from East Africa become the fuel of the modern world? This is the story of how coffee took over the world. Like many ancient foods, coffee's true origin is difficult to prove. But one famous story takes us to Ethiopia, hundreds of years ago. A goat herder named Kaldi supposedly noticed something strange. His goats had eaten bright red berries from a certain plant, and suddenly they would not stop jumping around. They were energetic, restless, almost wild. Kaldi tried the berries himself and felt the same effect. Now, whether Kaldi was a real person or just a legend, one thing is clear. Coffee plants grew naturally in the highlands of Ethiopia, and people there had been using the beans long before the world knew what coffee was. At first, coffee was not served in elegant cups. Some communities crushed the beans and mixed them with fat to make energy-rich balls, something like an ancient power snack. But coffee's journey truly began when it crossed the Red Sea into Yemen. And there, it became something much more powerful. By the 1400s, Yemen had become the center of the coffee world. Sufi monks drank coffee during long nights of prayer. They discovered that the drink helped them stay awake, focused, and alert. For people trying to pray through the night, coffee must have seemed almost magical. It didn't make you drunk, it didn't make you forget. It made you sharper. Soon, coffee spread through the Islamic world, from Yemen to Mecca, Cairo, Damascus, and Istanbul. People gathered in cafés called cafés. These were not just places to drink, they were places to talk. People discussed poetry, politics, business, religion, gossip, music, and news from distant lands. In a world without phones, television, or social media, the coffee house was where information traveled, and that made powerful people nervous. Coffee houses gave ordinary people something rulers often feared, a place to meet, think, and speak freely. In Mecca, some religious leaders worried that coffee gatherings were becoming too loud, too social, and too independent. Coffee was banned. In Cairo, it was banned. In Istanbul, it was banned. At one point, Ottoman authorities punished people for drinking it. Coffee shops were shut down because leaders believed they encouraged rebellion and criticism of the government. Think about that. A cup of coffee was treated like a political threat, but banning coffee was almost impossible. People loved it too much. The more rulers tried to stop it, the more coffee spread. And soon, Europe discovered it. When coffee arrived in Europe in the 1600s, people did not know what to make of it. Some called it the bitter invention of Satan. It came from the Muslim world. It was dark, unfamiliar, and it made people unusually awake. That sounded suspicious to many Europeans. According to one story, religious leaders asked Pope Clement VIII to ban coffee. But when the Pope tasted it, he reportedly liked it so much that he gave it his blessing. Whether every detail of that story is true or not, coffee quickly became popular across Europe. And it changed daily life in a surprising way. Before coffee, many people began their mornings with beer, wine, or weak ale. Not because everyone wanted to party at sunrise, but because clean drinking water was often difficult to find. Then coffee arrived. Suddenly people had a drink that was boiled, safer than questionable water, and made them more alert instead of less. For the first time, huge numbers of people were starting the day awake, focused, ready to work. Coffee houses exploded across Europe. In London, they were sometimes called penny universities, because for the price of a penny, you could buy a cup of coffee and listen to merchants, scientists, writers, and politicians debate ideas. Some of the biggest ideas in modern history passed through coffee houses. Businessmen met there to make deals. Writers gathered there to share work. Scientists discussed discoveries. Newspapers circulated through them. London's famous insurance company, Lloyd's of London, began in a coffee house where ship owners and merchants met. The London Stock Exchange grew from coffeehouse culture too. In France, cafes became gathering places for philosophers and revolutionaries. People could walk in, sit down, and hear opinions they would never hear inside a palace or church. Coffee houses helped create a new kind of public space, one where ideas could move faster than ever before. And when ideas move fast, the world changes fast. But coffee's global rise came with a brutal cost. As demand exploded in Europe, coffee could no longer be grown only in Yemen. European empires wanted control of the bean, The Dutch smuggled coffee plants out of the Arab world and began growing them in colonies. The French grew coffee in the Caribbean. The Portuguese grew it in Brazil. Coffee plantations spread across tropical regions, and many of them were built on forced labor and slavery. In places like Haiti and Brazil, enslaved people were made to work under horrific conditions to produce coffee for wealthy consumers thousands of miles away. Coffee became a global luxury, but the people growing it often lived in poverty and violence. This is a part of the story that often gets left out. The drink that helped fuel intellectual freedom in Europe was also tied to colonialism, exploitation, and human suffering. By the 1800s and 1900s, coffee was no longer just a cafe drink. It became part of the industrial world. Factories needed workers to stay awake through long shifts. Offices needed employees who could focus for hours. Soldiers carried coffee during wars. Coffee became portable, packaged, advertised, and mass-produced. Then came instant coffee. Then drive-through coffee. Then giant global chains. Today, coffee is one of the most traded products on Earth. More than 2 billion cups are consumed every single day. It has become part of the rhythm of modern life. The alarm rings. The coffee brews. The day begins. Coffee started as a mysterious berry in the mountains of East Africa. It traveled through monasteries in Yemen, crowded cafes in Istanbul, revolutionary streets in Paris, colonial plantations in the Caribbean, and factories across the modern world. It was banned by rulers, blessed by popes, used by monks, feared by kings, and loved by almost everyone who needed to stay awake. So the next time you take that first sip in the morning, remember, you are not just drinking coffee, you are taking part in a story of religion, rebellion, empire, invention, exploitation, and human ambition. A story that has been brewing for centuries. And somehow it still begins the same way. With one tired person reaching for a cup. Thank you for watching this video. Let us know in the comments, what everyday thing should we uncover next?